He lifted his glass and flashed a smile that looked friendly on the surface but carried something sharp underneath. I'd seen that kind of smile before. The kind people use when they're enjoying someone else's pain. To Emily, Blackwell said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. May she finally have a stable family. Something her sister never managed to give her. A wave of laughter rolled through the ballroom, light and careless. I stayed quiet. I didn't smile. I didn't move. My name is Caleb Morton, and the man standing there, humiliating me in front of nearly 200 guests, had no idea how close he was to paying for what he'd buried. For 20 years I carried the silence of a mind that caved in and the weight of parents who never came back out. Tonight, the ground under Blackwell's feet was starting to split. The ballroom glowed beneath its glass ceiling, chandeliers scattering light that bounced off snow-covered mountains outside. Everything sparkled, polished to perfection. The laughter floating through the air sounded practiced, hollow, like it came from people who had never truly lost anything. A jazz band played something soft and cheerful, filling the gaps between shallow compliments and forced smiles. I sat at the table farthest from the spotlight, half hidden behind crystal centerpieces and flickering candlelight. From there, I watched my sister stand out in her white dress, glowing the way brides do when they're trying to be brave. Emily's smile shook just a little, a nervous tremor no one else seemed to notice. At the head table, Blackwell rose to his feet. He looked every bit the powerful man, confident, smooth, completely in control. He raised his glass like he was blessing the room. Here's to Emily, he said, his voice slicing clean through the chatter. A wonderful young woman who will finally have a stable family, something she clearly never had growing up. The laughter that followed came slower this time, uneasy and unsure. A glass clinked too loudly somewhere. Someone cleared their throat. Emily went stiff, her fingers digging into the tablecloth. I stayed seated, my eyes locked on the red wine swirling in Blackwell's glass. Under the chandelier light, it caught the glow like fresh blood. When I stood up, chairs creaked around me. Mr. Blackwell, I said calmly, keeping my voice low. Do you even know what stability really costs? The room fell silent, like someone had pulled the plug on sound itself. Blackwell blinked, his smirk slipping for half a second before he forced it back. Ah, he said softly. The brother speaks. I smiled, not at him but at Emily. Her eyes were wide, full of fear and something deeper she didn't want anyone to see. Then I sat back down, steady as stone. He thinks this is about pride, I told myself. But this isn't about pride. It's about foundations, and his is cracking. Somewhere across the room a phone buzzed. Blackwell frowned and checked his screen. The color drained from his face just enough to notice. Denver Daily Investigations. Blackwell mining case reopened. My smile didn't disappear. It grew quiet, sure and unavoidable. The night the mine collapsed, still tears at my memory. Sirens screaming. Men shouting. The smell of coal and dust cutting through the frozen air. I was 17, gripping a chain-link fence so hard my hands went numb, watching ambulances disappear into the dark. They said no one was left inside. I knew better. My parents never came out. Someone yelled from the pit. The roof had failed. The beams weren't reinforced. But the next morning the newspaper told a cleaner story. Natural quake causes tragic accident. I walked into Blackwell Mining's office with that article folded in my jacket. The man behind the desk didn't even bother looking at me. You should move on, kid, he said. Blackwell paid enough. He didn't notice me grab the report from his desk. The ink was faint but one line burned into my brain. Approved for cost reduction. W. Blackwell. That was the day I stopped believing in accidents. The years after came in pieces. Steel dust, concrete pours, the constant scream of drills. By day I built bridges. By night, I raised Emily in a tiny apartment filled with cheap meals and borrowed hope. She learned how to draw and dream. I learned how to shut mine down. Now a photo of our parents sits on my desk, light flickering across their faces like a fire trapped behind glass. If you built your empire on broken beams, I whisper sometimes, I'll be the one who brings it down. My phone buzzes. Emily's message lights up the screen. Claire. Evan proposed. You'll love his family. My hand tightens until my palm hurts. She doesn't know. She's marrying the son of the man who killed our parents. The Blackwell estate looks like it was designed to intimidate. Glass walls, perfect vineyard views, money in every detail. The air smells clean and expensive, sweet and empty. Blackwell sits at the center of it all, his confidence weighing as heavy as the gold watch on his wrist. He studies me slowly, the way people do when they've already decided you don't belong. A civil engineer, right? He asks, rolling his wine. So you build things that eventually fall apart. I meet his eyes. Only when someone cuts the supports. His smile stiffens, then comes back thinner. We both understand exactly what I mean. Behind him hangs a framed family photo, Blackwell, his wife, Evan, and in the background, the same mountain ridge where the mine collapsed. A chandelier reflection cuts through the image like a crack in glass. He put it there on purpose. A quiet trophy. Dinner goes on, polite words sharpened at the edges. When it's over, I step into the cold night air. Evan follows me outside, hands stuffed in his pockets. He's difficult, he says. But he's not a bad man. I look at him. You've never seen the beams from the inside, have you? I leave him standing there as light from the house spills across the snow like fractures spreading from a broken foundation. Back home, I open my laptop. The screen fills the dark room as files scroll past, until one stops me cold. Site report. Rocky Ridge Extension. A new project. A familiar crime. 2 weeks before the wedding, my office lights hum while the blueprint glows on the screen. Load-bearing compromised. Reinforcement skipped. Supervisor approval. W. Blackwell. I send everything to Grant. His response hits fast. If this holds up, it's homicide. That afternoon, Emily calls me crying. Why did you talk to a reporter about Dad's company? Who told you that? Evan heard things. You're trying to destroy him. I'm not destroying anyone, I say. I'm rebuilding what they broke. She hangs up. The silence between us feels like a crater. Hours later, Grant emails again. Follow the money. $3. $2 million moved from an environmental fund to a Bohemian account. They died for $3 million. I whisper to my parents' photo. That night, an envelope waits beneath my door. Inside the envelope was a map of a new mining site. Entire sections were circled in red, clearly marked unsafe. A short message scrolled beneath it. He's doing it again. I found Emily later that night. She was smiling too hard, the kind of smile people wear when they're trying not to think. Mr. Blackwell's paying for our honeymoon, she said, like it was good news. Then he's buying your silence, I answered. She shut the glass door between us, the light splintering as it closed. Back home, I spread the plans across my desk and traced them in red ink. Stress points, pressure zones, failure lines. Beneath it all, I wrote 2 letters, W.H. The cracks weren't coming. They were already there. A week later, Emily spun in her wedding dress, fabric floating around her like nothing bad could ever touch her. You look perfect, Evan said, his voice full of hope. My phone vibrated. SECC confirms investigation. Right on time, I muttered. That night, Evan showed up at my door. If you know something about my father, he said quietly, you need to tell me. I looked at him and asked, would you still marry someone who made money off the dead? He didn't answer. The next morning, Emily cornered me. You're obsessed, she said. You can't let this go. Time doesn't bury the truth, I told her. It exposes what wasn't built right. Then Grant called. Blackwell knows. Then he's digging in the wrong place, I said. Later, Nathan Dalton whispered over the phone. He's laundering money through Emily's name. My stomach dropped. That night, I wrote in my journal. If I stop now, he wins. If I keep going, she pays the price. Justice always breaks something. Snow began to fall. I texted Grant. Wedding day. 2:15 p.m. Before sunrise, I left my father's drafting pencil beside Emily's bed. The metal was engraved with 2 words. Build to last. You don't know it yet, I whispered. But this time I'm building for both of us. 3 days before the wedding, I drove out past Denver to the old Blackwell mine. The air was damp and sharp, thick with rust and wet earth. Cracked walls and corroded beams leaned where strength used to be. Everything looked the same as it had that night, just quieter. I ran my fingers over a faint engraving still etched into the stone. Safety first. You forgot your own rule, I whispered. Blackwell. Back at my apartment, my desk had turned into a battlefield. Blueprints, timelines, account numbers, names, all connected by lines like tension steel. Every piece locked into place. Grant's face appeared on my laptop screen. "You sure about the timing?" "He'll raise his glass at 2:15, I said. "Make sure the world's watching." At that exact hour, an anonymous email landed in Blackwell's inbox. SEC knows. Chaos followed fast. He ordered a full systems audit, tearing through servers, even the one I'd once worked on. He found nothing. I wiped every trace years ago. The proof lives somewhere, no one could erase it. That evening, Emily came to my door. Her voice shook. "Evan says the company's in trouble. He says it's you. Please, Caleb, if you love me, stop." "I can't stop what started 20 years ago," I said. "You'll destroy us." "No," I said quietly. "I'm rebuilding what was destroyed." She stared at me like she didn't recognize the person who raised her. The next morning, I sent Blackwell a wedding gift. An elegant silver frame holding a photo of the collapsed mine. Beneath the surface, barely visible, was a layer of offshore transfers routed to the Bahamas. On the back, I'd engraved one sentence: "Foundations don't lie." A hidden lens inside the frame would record his face when he opened it. That afternoon, he called me to meet at a downtown cafe. "You think paper can hurt me?" he said, eyes sharp. "I bury people with paperwork." "Not this time," I said evenly. "This time the paper signs your fall." His smile went cold. "When foundations give way," he said, "everything above them goes too. Even your sister." He walked out. I stayed seated, dust drifting through the open door like the first crumble before a cave-in. Minutes later, Grant called. "Someone leaked our timeline. Another outlet's publishing early." "Then move it up," I said. "He toasts at 1:45. Change the clock." Only I knew the new time. That night, I unlocked my father's old safe. I laid his pencil next to the faded permit for the Blackwell mine. On the last page of my notebook, I wrote "Blueprint of Justice." Cracks aligned. Collapse imminent. Lamplight spread across the drawing like sunlight creeping over stone. The foundation was ready to fall. Snow drifted past the balcony rail as I stared at my phone. Grant's message blinked. "Files scheduled. Countdown starts at 13:45 tomorrow." I typed back. "When he raises his glass, the world finds out." The snow melted in my hand before I wiped it away. A soft knock came at the door. Emily stood there in her robe, pale and restless. "I can't sleep," she said. "Dad's worried. Evan's scared. Tell me this is all a misunderstanding." "It's not," I said gently. "Tomorrow isn't about hate. It's about truth. But truth hurts. So does every reconstruction." Her lip trembled, but she said nothing. She turned away, closing the door between us, both of us knowing it was the last time. Across the hall, Blackwell sat in his suite, his voice hard on the phone. "There's talk of an SEC alert. Should we cancel the ceremony?" someone asked. "No," he said. "Tomorrow I'll raise my glass and remind them who owns the ground they stand on." He wired money to silence a journalist, not knowing the files had already been sent to international servers. Near midnight, Evan found the folder his father hid in the study. Inside were forged signatures, his and Emily's, authorizing illegal transfers. He stared at the pages, stunned. "He used me," Evan whispered. "He used her. He came to my door." "You were right." "Then tomorrow," I told him, "say nothing. Let the ground give way." After he left, I faced my reflection in the bathroom mirror. Pale skin, sleepless eyes, hair falling loose. "I was 17 the last time the ground collapsed," I murmured. "Tomorrow, I make sure it never happens again." Lightning split the sky. The mirror rattled, fractured by sound. Before dawn, a folded note slid under my door. Emily's handwriting. "Whatever happens tomorrow, please remember I love you." I didn't cry. I folded it carefully and slipped it into my coat. When morning came, the snow had stopped. Sunlight poured over the mountains, bright, clean and unforgiving. On the table beside me sat a single glass of red wine, untouched. I lifted it just enough to feel its weight and whispered, "For you, Mom. For you, Dad. For the truth." Down in the valley, church bells began to ring. I couldn't tell if they were calling people together for a wedding or warning them of what was coming. The ballroom in Aspen looked flawless. White walls, polished marble, sunlight bouncing off glass like it had something to celebrate. Guests murmured happily. Cameras flashed. Violins floated through the room. Everyone moved except me. I stayed still, my glass untouched, waiting for 1:45. Blackwell adjusted his tie, raised his wine, and smiled at the crowd. "To Emily and Evan," he said. "May your marriage stand stronger than some foundations we've seen before." Laughter crackled through the room, thin and nervous. Emily's shoulders tightened. I stood up slowly. Light caught the silver of my dress as I spoke, steady and clear. "You like talking about foundations, Mr. Blackwell," I said. "But do you even understand what keeps the ground from giving way?" He smirked. "An engineer's lecture?" I set my glass down hard. "You built everything you own on hollow ground. I'm here to make sure it finally collapses." His phone vibrated. The color drained from his face. Behind him, the wedding screen flickered, then changed. Headlines filled the room. Blackwell mining under federal investigation. Documents. Transfers. Forged signatures. Every lie laid bare. "You used my name for this?" Evan shouted. Blackwell didn't answer. Emily broke down, sobbing. I stepped forward. "My parents died because you chose profit over safety," I said. "Today, the truth weighs more than your gold ever did." I turned to Emily. "Walk away," I said softly. She took Evan's hand, and together they left. The room went silent. Blackwell sagged into his chair, wine spilling across the white tablecloth like blood. As I passed him, cameras clicked. By morning, one image would tell the entire story. Rain streaked silver lines down the window later that night. The city beyond blurred under the storm. A television murmured in the background until one name cut through the noise. Blackwell has been detained by federal authorities following the release of incriminating evidence. The SEC and FBI confirm multiple accounts under investigation. I turned the TV off. Silence filled the room, heavy but calm. On the table lay my father's old drafting pencil, its metal edges worn smooth by years of honest work. "They finally saw what you saw, Dad," I whispered. The front door flew open. Emily stood there, eyes swollen, breath unsteady. "You destroyed my husband's family," she said. "You humiliated us." "No," I replied quietly. "I stopped pretending your happiness wasn't built on lies." She slammed a newspaper onto the table. Blackwell's face stared back at us, framed by handcuffs. "You could have told me," she said. "Would you have listened?" We stood there, neither of us speaking. Love and grief wrestled in the silence until neither could win. My phone rang. Grant's voice came through, calm and certain. "It's finished. The trust has been reinstated. The company will rebuild under a new name, the Morton Memorial Fund." "Then the ground finally holds," I said. Later, a message appeared on my screen. "I understand now. You didn't destroy us. You rebuilt us. Thank you for giving me something solid to stand on." I smiled, small and quiet. The first real smile I'd had since the mine collapsed. I stepped onto the balcony and watched the rain fade. City lights shimmered through wet glass. Justice doesn't shout. It settles. Like earth after a quake. A year later, the old mine had become a sanctuary. Wild grass covered what had once been rubble. A marble monument stood where destruction used to be. Morton Memorial Trust. Built from truth. I knelt and placed a bundle of white lilies at its base. The wind was gentle. The air smelled new. I pulled my father's drafting pencil from my pocket and etched one small line beneath the engraving. "Built to last." Birdsong drifted through the quiet valley. Grant's footsteps approached behind me. "Do you regret it?" he asked. "No," I said, still facing the stone. "You can't rebuild without breaking first." He handed me an envelope. "Emily wanted you to have this." Inside, her handwriting was steady and sure. "We're naming our first daughter Clara after you. I want her to know what a true foundation means." My eyes burned. I folded the letter carefully. "Then her name will stand strong," I whispered. As I walked away, sunrise poured gold across the mountains. Snow melted, water carving clean paths through the soil. They called it revenge. I called it restoration.